Hello everyone, my name is Derrick Trotter. This presentation was prepared for Business and Professional Ethics, and my business person of choice is Bernard L. Madoff, who operated one of the biggest schemes in history. I will briefly go over the history of Mr. Madoff, then I will go into detail about the unethical process of Mr. Madoff's behavior during his years operating businesses. To begin, here is a picture of Bernie Madoff in his prime. Who is Bernie Madoff, you might ask? Bernie Madoff is a well-known Wall Street investment advisor who became world famous for operating possibly the largest Ponzi scheme in history. When investigators for the FBI and the SEC finally uncovered the massive fraud in 2008, losses by Madoff's investors estimated to be more than $50 billion over the course of nearly 20 years. Why is discussing unethical behavior important? Well, discussing unethical behavior is very important. Using a successful figure like Madoff can give a good example of how ethics and behavior can alter success. Forms of unethical behavior are cheating, deception, and company misconduct. These are important to understand because they create, some of the greatest challenges in today's society. It's good to study unethical behavior. Unfortunately, even good people can do bad things, and understanding that even the smallest unethical behavior and consistent patterns causes the greatest damage in our society. Here is a photo of Bernie in his younger years of life. He was born on April 29, 1938. The early life of Mr. Madoff is important in understanding how seemingly normal-looking people can get caught in unethical behavior. As a child of Polish immigrants, Madoff grew up in a neighborhood called Laurelton in Queens, New York. He went to the University of Alabama, but then earned a degree in political science from Hofstra University, which is in Hempstead, New York. Up until this point, Bernard is leading a typical American young man life. He then founded Bernard Madoff Investment Securities with his wife Ruth, who worked on Wall Street at the time. Madoff's specialty was penny stocks, which are low-price shares that are traded on over-the-counter market. This is the predecessor to the NASDAQ exchange. And later on, Madoff served as a NASDAQ director for 3 one-year terms. The beginning to unethical behavior. Did Madoff's success make it easier to indulge in unethical behavior? Well, after the success of Madoff Investment Securities, he made close friendships with wealthy, popular businessmen in New York and Florida. He signed them as investors, paid them impressive returns, and used their positive recommendations to attract more investors. He also helped his reputation by developing relationships with financial regulators. He wanted to attract serious investors only. Some people were not accepted, as this became a symbol of prestige to be accepted by Bernie Madoff. Investigators later positioned that Madoff's pyramid, or Ponzi scheme, originated in early 1980s. This is where the unethical behavior started. With more investors joining, he then used the new investors' money to pay the payouts to the investors that have already been accepted. He was also known for using these funds to give to his family and friends. Come on, Bernie, why did you do it? What was the motive behind being unethical? One of the most confusing part of the Bernie Madoff case is the question of why he ever committed the fraud to begin with. This question is more unique than the actual fraud itself. Madoff's own brokerage business was very successful, and I mean very successful, making him and his family extremely wealthy. He certainly had no financial need to secure thousands of clients out of billions of dollars. Soon after Bernie started his firm, he realized he was losing the investors' money. Most of us would have suffered the losses, but Madoff was just a different person. I truly think that his ego got in the way of being an ethical person with these funds he generated from clients. I believe failure was not an option for Mr. Madoff. Instead of accepting the defeat, he then created a fraud scheme, and ultimately this was called the Ponzi scheme. The famous Ponzi scheme. Why was it so simple? Madoff's Ponzi scheme was operated through the wealth management portion of his business. It was a simple scheme, which, in my opinion, made it more dangerous. Madoff attracted investors by promising them extraordinarily high returns on their investments. However, when investors handed over the money, Madoff just deposited it into his personal bank account at Chase Manhattan Bank. He paid returns to earlier investors using the money obtained from later investors. Clients' trading statements showing their alleged profits were complete fabrications. Who was affected by the Ponzi scheme? Well, for starters, his own family was affected by his unethical ways. Although making his family a fortune, his own son Mark committed suicide due to his father's wrongdoings. The main people affected were the investors. Most of these people lost things like their retirement, which made them have to restart in life. The damage was spread throughout his victims, which also hurt the economy. Why did Bernie continue with the unethical behavior? Basically, Bernie was able to get away with it for so long because Bernie's business ethics and moral behavior always projected a good look to the public in the beginning. We have to remember he was a big name in the United States during his prime. He also didn't have motive to scheme, so this made him seem innocent. Organizational leadership is critical of any business, and when Bernie Madoff is the leader, this makes the whole company look terrible. He continued to commit unethical behavior to feed his ego and not accept defeat. The pattern in his laundering behavior made him continue with this nonsense so he could continue using future investors to cover past investments. In my personal opinion, I believe he just got too deep into the scheme to where he literally couldn't quit. Now, in the eye of the public, he is known for stealing billions from celebrities and emptied out pension funds of important people in our society like firefighters and teachers. And as we all know, this doesn't sit well with the public. All in all, the scheme is very unethical. And why is it unethical? Well, this was unethical because the Ponzi scheme investigation revealed that in over 20 years, Bernie Madoff's company was responsible for laundering money, committing mail fraud, and firing false SEC reports. These were the criminal activities that ultimately amounted to over $50 billion to fraud committed against clients and charity organizations. When you drain the bank accounts of thousands of families across the U.S., a sad ending must follow. This history-making scheme leaves families in shambles. This Ponzi scheme is one of the biggest schemes ever in the history of schemes. Although Bernie Madoff investment securities demonstrated great moral character and just as great ethical values, this covered the fact that Bernie was, well, just a greedy person. Bernie Madoff's unethical practices led to a huge investigation. Bernie's unethical behavior cost a lot of pain to thousands of families, and the unethical nature of Bernie Madoff's greed will teach us many lessons in how to conduct ourselves in our future career paths. The only good thing we learned out of this situation is that we can guard against schemes now. The moral of the Bernie Madoff story is to never get greedy. In Madoff's case, his unethical behavior landed him in prison for a 150-year sentence after Bernie's two sons discovered his terrible plans and turned him into authorities. I would like to thank everybody that listened, as this concludes the presentation over ethics in business.